Hello everyone, thanks for joining us for another edition of Texas Insider TV, brought to you by SpeedStream. I'm Jim Cardle. Becky Motal was with the Lower Colorado River Authority for 27 years, finishing out her career as general manager, and has now landed at the Association of Women in Energy. If there's been any two issues that have been at the forefront of the political or policy debates, or of concern to Texans, it's been water and energy. We're pleased to be able to visit today with Becky Motal of the Association of Women in Energy. Hello, Becky. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Couple different things that I mentioned, your illustrious career that you've built up over the last couple of years we'll get into in a minute. But first, before we talk about energy and women, let me ask you, if I can, about the LCRA. Acronyms are frequently used. The Lower Colorado River Authority is a big unknown deal by and large in Texas, and you've been heading it as the first woman to head that association. Tell us a little bit, if you would, what is the LRCA?
Well, the LCRA is the Lower Colorado River Authority. It was created, but pursuant to the Constitution, close to 80 years ago. Its purpose was to stop the flooding and provide a more reliable water supply, manage the lower part of the Colorado River in Texas. It is a major public utility with large generating assets. It produces electric energy, and it is the second largest transmission provider in the state of Texas. And again, it manages the Highland Lakes, which are the water supply for about 1 million people in central Texas.
I know you mentioned the Highland Lakes. That includes Lake Travis, just outside of Austin, one of the better known lakes, but also up to the Fort Worth area, and I guess is also known for the rice growers down closer to Houston. Tell us a little bit more about managing that flow, if you would.
Well, our responsibilities would go up to Lake Buchanan, which is just a little bit south of San Saba, the Llano area, but all of the lakes that make up what is commonly known as the Highland Lakes. And then the river below Austin, which goes all the way down to Matagorda Bay. And the other part of the mission, or the original creation of LCRA, was to have that steady supply of water, not only for people living up in central Texas, but for the rice farmers downstream.
Big issue, water. Thank you for your management of that, and congratulations on being the first female manager of the LCRA. But let's move to your current endeavor and talk women in energy, if we can. You had, I'm sure, a number of things that you could have possibly done. Becky Motal ended up landing at a place called the Association of Women in Energy. I suspect for very good reasons. Tell us about your decision and about AWE, if you can.
Well, it kind of came by accident. I was on the board before, and someone asked me if I'd be willing to become the president. And since I've spent my whole life literally in energy and water, to speak of, I felt like it's really important, and there are a lot of women in this industry, and it's broad. It may be oil and gas, it may be generation transmission, but just to have an organization that helps women know other people in the industry, know what the issues are, what are the people they need to meet, and help them network better. So I thought nothing better could I do than to give back what I've learned over 40 years in my professional career.
People will be familiar with the Hunt family, the Bass family, T. Boone Pickens, George Mitchell. There's a lot of male names associated with the history of the Texas oil and gas industry, but I'm sure there's already been inroads. Is there any statistics or numbers you can mention that people would be interested to know about the females engaging and succeeding in the oil and gas industry?
Well, I know that there's a growing number of women that work in the industry, and they may be at lower levels. They're doing non-typical jobs, traditionally male-oriented jobs. There are women CEOs. Even on the board of the Association of Women in Energy, we have executives from Energy Future Holdings, Entergy, Texas, Halliburton, big companies. So they're making inroads, and we just need to help the women that are in the field be better at what they do.
Whether it's working on a drill site or in the corporate suite or being what's been called a landman. I'm sure that you have some, or there's members of your group that have some thoughts on that, but talk about, if you can, the industry itself. Are there various segments that have been easier for women to begin a career in? Is it all an open field at this point? What would your advice be maybe to analyze the industry as it sits today?
Well, I'm probably more familiar with the electric utility part of the industry.
Okay.
But certainly know that there are women that are pioneers in the oil and gas, some who have been landmen. There are women now that are chief operating officers. I was a CEO. There are women that are CEOs of various energy companies. There are women throughout it, and so they're making headways, and it's good for the industry because they bring, their ideas, their expertise, and they help their own companies be successful. So it's a growing number of women in the field, and it's a growing number that are getting into those more non-traditional jobs.
Much needed and fresh ideas, I'm sure, to say the least. Folks, again, thanks for joining us for another edition of Texas Insider TV. We're visiting with Becky Motal of the Association of Women in Energy. How about, Becky, if I can ask you this type of question? There are probably different oil and gas associations, different banking associations, different industry associations of all types here in Austin. Tell me, though, if you can, a little bit more about AWE. What do you see as the role of the group other than gaining membership and networking, perhaps?
Well, there are other organizations that are reaching out, whether they're women in energy or women in oil and gas, or, what I see AWE's role is to provide a vehicle for women to network and for us to network across the field. Okay. And get to know other people that are working in your area. I had the advantage in El Cerrito of working more externally, so I got to know a lot of people in the industry. That is something that I hope to accomplish. What we're going to do with AWE is make it much more, we're going to create value for the members so that they sense the value that they're getting, and it helps them be better in their careers.
I know we've had even a couple railroad commissioners have been recently females, Christy Craddock and Elizabeth Ames Jones, and probably good examples. And if I can, just to wrap up, I want to circle back a little bit into your water expertise and tap into your brain on a couple issues, because water and fracking, water and the drilling process, water just in general is scarcity in this time of drought. What can you tell us about the need for water, and how exactly is water used in oil and gas, number one? And number two, is there a real reason, legitimate reason, to be concerned about the need for that in a growing oil and gas economy?
Well, there is a concern, and there's two things that we fundamentally have to have for life and for a healthy state and a healthy economy, and they're water and energy. And you can't have one without the other. So we've got to be mindful of that. And oil and gas, and it's just been a complete boom. It's helped with gas prices because of all the exploration, the fracking issues. So water is an important component of that, and energy is a component of water. So it's nice to be involved with both of them. But in a western state as Texas is, we do have droughts.
Mm-hmm.
It will rain at some point, but we have to be mindful that people want to live here, and we've got to have adequate water supplies as well as energy supplies for the growing population.
So, in your opinion, would there be any reason for egregious concern that water being tapped to go into an oil and gas well, because there's recycled water, it comes out at the end of the drilling process often as clean as it went in, but in particular, just addressing that concern of the use, the increasing use of water in the oil and gas process.
They are using water very efficiently in the development and the exploration, and we've got to continue to be mindful how we've got to work with them and not try to find ways to impede that progress, because the gas exploration boom has clearly enabled this state and this country to be energy independent.
And we'll have to have you back. I'm going to stop it there in the use in the interest of being efficient, as you say. But we'll have you back to talk about the future of the industry and your association as well. And appreciate you coming in.
Thank you very much.
Folks, appreciate you joining us for another edition of Texas Insider TV, brought to you by SpeedStream. Be sure and join us in the future. And remember, you're either an insider or you're not. I'm Jim Cardle. Thanks for joining us.